Everyone is sending emails, everyone is talking, everyone's trying to get attention, and none of it works. But somehow, the top 1% of coaches are making most of their money from email. So why does it feel so off when you try to do that? Because the way you've been taught writing emails is the exact reason why they won't work. So like you, I've been looking at coaches who kept saying that email is the best marketing channel. That's where my most revenue is coming for. And the best warm channel for marketing is email. And at some point, I just started wondering, like, okay, how do I do that? Why my emails are not working the same way as theirs? What am I doing wrong? What I can improve? What to change? And how actually bring money using email. And that's when we try to figure it out and end up implementing the wrong things. So I started doing what I thought I should do. I started watching lots of copywriting videos, bought books, and trying to understand, improve, and getting all of the details like subject line, frameworks, call to actions, all of those nuances, trying to understand how to structure the email and how to engineer every sentence to make it sound the right way. And I spent months doing that, months trying to get better, trying to understand things, and just end up not doing and not sending anything in like 5 or 6 months. And when I finally felt like I am ready to send emails and I started doing them, started writing them, it felt weird. It felt like I am not the one writing them. It felt really, really awkward. And the people on my list, it seemed like they didn't care about them at all. They were so off. And honestly, it just felt like I am blending in with everyone else. And at the same time, if we look actually at what is happening in real inboxes, we realize that the average person online receives 121 emails every single day, meaning you're competing for the same attention in the exact same inbox with 120 other senders. Good news is, most of them is an AI slop, meaning they're using the same principles, the same structure, and they're trying the same tricks. The bad news, though, for now, we are trying to replicate the same principles, the same structures, and we're using the same tricks in our emails. Now, we're stuck in a position where we have two options. Either we try to get better, try to be better at copywriting, try to be better at structuring, try to be better at just writing the emails in the right way and getting deeper and deeper into that direction. Or we just quit. We tell ourselves that email is not really working and it is just saturated and it's just not for us and we will never try again. But what I realized is the top 1% never choosing those two options. They go in a third direction, the one that is not seen by most of the people online. And if you want to actually understand what the 1% is doing right, first, you have to see what everyone else is doing wrong. And the first thing is copywriting obsession. That's where we try to find the right words, say them in the right way, believing that if we do that good enough and well enough, people will eventually listen to us and just act. But in reality, copywriting is saying very specific words at a very specific order, and ideally, the fewer words, the better. And it does sound pretty simple at a first glance. But what we don't realize is the threshold to be at least good is insanely high. Because if we look at people that are truly exceptional at copywriting, we realize how impactful it is. Those people are getting paid fortunes for just saying a few words. For example, a diamond is forever. A company on the verge of bankruptcy hired a copywriting agency as a last resort. They came up with that slogan, and only with those 4 words, they're taking the company from almost bankruptcy to billions of dollars. And that's when you realize this is not something that we master in months, in a few weeks, and even years. This is something surgical that requires a lot of time. And we didn't really become coaches to sit in a lab coat and engineer words, right? We don't care about it. What we want is to help people and not to focus on those little actions. So then you shift and you start thinking, okay, if it's not about words, maybe I can just give more value. And this is where things get worse because people don't really understand the definition of word value. They thinking, okay, value, let's send them more information. Let's start sending how-tos, checklists, PDFs, all the gold nuggets of implementations that I know. But they're not realizing that they're turning their emails into mini courses and trying to teach people implementation before they are ready to do something. Because the problem is, we live in a world where information is limitless. I can literally tap into any source of information by just Googling it, asking my AI, my LLM, going to YouTube and find the answer to every question that I want. So adding more information and sending more stuff won't actually help. And usually what ends up happening is people get those emails, they read them and they think, okay, this is good, this is interesting info, I should save it for later, but then they save it and never use. Because information doesn't create action. What people actually lacks is movement. We don't want to learn more. We want to feel like we're moving closer to an outcome. We want something to inspire us and show us why we should take the next step and not just sit there and consume. Because no one wants to sit there and actually consume and work and learn. What we want is to feel like we're learning, feel like we're moving towards something, and that is the change. That's what we should focus on first. And when you keep sending more and more and more information, you're just overwhelming them, creating hesitation, and you're just making it seem like it's way harder than it has to be. And you run out of things to say pretty fast because information and implementation is limited. And here's the last part. Today, when sending emails is the easiest that it's ever been, people are not sending better emails, they're sending more emails. They just get a domain, ask AI to write an email, and then they just send it again and again and again. And it's just getting so repeatable, so predictable, and just boring. And that's the real reason why people hate emails. Not because the emails themselves, but because of what the 99% of people who email turned it into. And this is where the realization is happening. It's not that the emails are bad. It's not that the offer is wrong. You just sound like everyone else because you've been taught to sound the same way. And when everyone sounds the same, nothing stands out. And when nothing stands out, nothing's get attention. And when nothing's get attention, nothing's convert. So now that you understand that, what the 1% is actually doing differently. They don't try to sound smarter, they don't try to look like experts, they just sound like people. And the biggest shift for me was understanding storytelling. Because a mediocre story beats good copy every single time. Not because it's written better, because people don't analyze them, they feel stories. And when you try to write a mediocre copy, people can feel the intention behind it. With stories, that is not the case. People just relate to it and go with the flow. And that is what you actually need. And the reason it works is pretty simple. Stories is the very first language that we've been speaking since birth. And till this day, we're communicating with stories, meaning you're a pretty damn good storyteller. At least better than 99% of people who are still trying to pursue copywriting. And when I say stories, I don't mean something big and dramatic. Not how I made gazillions dollars in a single day. Not how I met this very famous person, because most of the people cannot really relate to those types of stories. And what actually works is the small and simple stories. A thought you had this morning during breakfast, a conversation with a client, or maybe a weird thing that you saw in your inbox, something that the person was reading can just think to itself, oh, I've been there. Because the more relatable something is, the more emotional it becomes. The easier it's for the reader to get into your shoes and experience the whole story with you. And the more emotional it becomes, the more likely someone will follow through and take the action. And this is exactly why I created my Skool group, to help coaches understand and implement storytelling into the emails that they are writing. Because if you're into email marketing and you want to actually start implementing everything that I'm talking about in the video, that's what it's all about. How to write emails that sound like you, how to write simple stories, and how to move someone towards the action that you want them to take without turning the email into a manual. So if you're trying to figure it out on your own and be at the 1% of coaches who email great emails, then I want to invite you to check out the group. It's a free group where you get to meet me and other coaches who are working, learning, and implementing everything that we've talked in this video to get there. So check it out. The link will be in the pinned comment below. And that's exactly what connects us to the next shift, because you're not sending emails to teach them everything. You're not sending emails to give them another framework. What you want to do is to actually create movement, to make someone feel like they're getting closer to the outcome, to make them feel like they're progressing, to make them feel like they can take the next step. And that's what value is, not information, movement. Sometimes that is just telling them they're not crazy for thinking this way. Sometimes it's showing them what actually holds them back. Sometimes it's reframing something that they've been seeing the wrong way, or helping them see themselves differently. And the cool thing about it is you don't have to do all of them in every email. You just pick one and you write an email about it. And the last thing is something people overthink way too much. This is consistency. How many emails I should send? Why should I send more? Should I send less? Am I annoying people? Because people think every email has to be perfect. It has to deliver lots of value, or at least get opened. Think about someone you don't actually know but see almost every day. It could be at your local cafe, at a gym, or a place you just go there often. At first, when you see them, you don't even recognize them. But over time, the more you start noticing them, and the more you feel like you create a sort of a connection. Maybe you nod, maybe you wave, maybe you just smile to them, but something is happening and you feel like you can trust this person more than the rest of the cafe, rest of the gym, or rest of the place. People that are complete strangers and you don't know, even though you don't know this person at all. You've never spoken, you've never shared a word, just the fact that you've been seeing them over and over again. And that is exactly how email work. You don't need them to open every email. Just the fact that you show up and they see your name is doing the work for you. Because the more consistent you are and more times you show in their inbox, the more they feel like they trust you. Even though if they're not opening, they're archiving the emails. They feel inclined towards your name and they feel like they can trust you, even if it's just by opening the email. And then what happens is they see the offer, and the more they see the offer, they're more familiar with it. And the more familiar they with your offer, the more they trust it. So it's not just about getting the perfect email whenever you feel like it. It's about being there and consistently showing up, seeing your name, showing up your name, showing up your offer is just consistently sending and being in that inbox. And you don't need to send more noise just for the sake of sending emails. You just need to sound like a person. So the next time when you're sending an email, don't start with a framework. Don't try to teach something. Just think about a moment. Start with something small, but something real. And then just write a story about it. Because that's what makes people read, what makes them wait for your emails and come back to them again and again. And eventually that is what makes people trust you and what make them act. You don't win an email by sounding smarter. You win an email by being simple. And the difference between the 99% and the 1% is pretty simple. The 99% are trying to do copywriting tricks, while the 1% is telling simple, relatable, and emotional stories. The 99% think value means more information, so they send more how-tos, more steps to, more implementation, while the 1% is understanding that value is moving and they're inspiring their members to take the action. And the 99% are just sending noise without any intention, without any thought behind, and stop immediately when they don't see any results coming in. And the 1%, they just stay consistent, they show up, and they know that the more that they do and the longer that they show, the more results they'll get. They win by staying long in the game. That's the longevity game, and that is the reason why they win. And that's it. That's the whole difference. So now you understand exactly why most emails don't work. It's not because email is dead. It's not because you're a bad writer. It's just because everyone is trying to do the same tricks instead of making people feel something. And once you start thinking this way, focusing on emotions, focusing on movement, understanding why people make decisions, everything changes. And this is where the psychology comes in, because people don't act because of information, they act because something made them feel like they want to act, something inspired them to take action. In the next video, I'm breaking down the 7 dark psychological principles that can persuade anyone into taking action without forcing them and without them even realizing it. And if you want to see exactly how I do that, click on the screen and go watch that video next.